Gibson is making a version of the Black Flying Bee I played on Cannonball Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets is now going to be a limited edition, signature edition. Yeah, that's coming out pretty soon.
The Ice Thirst Horror Show album, I know you probably heard if you don't listen to it. The band Ice Earth, they had an album called Horror Show, which is like Dracula, all that stuff. And have you ever had a similar idea of writing songs about like Dracula or Mummy or?
You know, I've actually just recently thought that maybe I should sit down with my guitar and my amp and put on Nosferatu and try to compose my own little soundtrack to it. Because that movie really, it has a soundtrack, but it's not a very good one. It's the organ music that was written in the 1920s in Europe, so it's not really that effective. And so I had an idea of like just sitting down and thinking, oh, you know, maybe I can make my own little soundtrack. So that's actually something that I'm planning on doing whenever I have the spare time, which at this point looks like sometime in like 2016 or something. More questions?
Hey Kirk, Jason from Canada, we fucking love you. You are amazing. Any other Canadians here? No, okay. That's alright. Nervous as hell here. Kirk, I'm just wondering if there's any current or modern age, I guess, horror movies or monster movies that you enjoy, like series movies or individual movies.
Well, I think when I think about it, the most recent horror movie I saw that I really, really enjoyed was a movie called Troll Hunter. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not. Horrible name, but a really, really great, funny, entertaining movie, and I really enjoyed that one. You know, I see horror movies all the time, but for me, it's just really difficult to remember the big ones. And I know I've seen big ones, I just can't remember. What's that? Well, you know, the vintage stuff compared to the horror movies that are coming out today, they're too different from each other. I mean, the vintage stuff is black and white, and you know the pacing of it is very slow. You have to have a lot of patience to be able to sit through those black and white movies. I saw this stuff when I was a kid, so I have all the patience to roll for them. But you know, horror movies now are so fast paced, and you have a lot of like CG aspects to a lot of them, and you know, I'm not one for gratuitous violence. I'm more, you know, more turned on by movies that have maybe a supernatural element to it, or a fantasy element, or you know, a character that's monstrous, like, you know, for instance, Alien or something, you know. But gratuitous violence for its own sake is not anything that I'm really particularly into. Like, you know, the Saw movies, you know, great, they're nice and suspenseful, but all that violence just gets to me after a while, you know? I think it had everything to do with the fact that one time in 1995, a friend of mine took my wife, who was my girlfriend back then, and myself to a morgue, and we saw a bunch of dead bodies and a bunch of autopsies. And after that, a few days later, I saw a Friday the 13th movie, and all I could think about was all the dead bodies I saw at the morgue, and it kind of scarred me. I've never told that story to anyone. You guys are the first. But going to the morgue, that's scary. Seeing all those dead bodies, woo.
Real dead bodies.
Well, another reason why the old movies, you have to really watch them. There's not soundtracks or music. Most of them are just straight dialogue.
Yeah, and a lot of silence.
It's really hard to sit through an hour and 10 minutes, 12 minutes of straight dialogue. Sort of like this, but
black and white.
But we have music in the background, so it's cool. But yeah, that's why it's tough to throw in the movies. Yeah, but they're great visually. They're amazing, especially like the German films.
Yeah.
You know, like the original Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Dr. Caligari's Cabinet.
Yeah. M. And Metropolis. You know, I do have to recommend a few vintage horror movies. So they're great, have great storylines, and are still very, very watchable today. One of them being a movie from 1935 called Mad Love. Fantastic story. There's another one of my favorites is from 1932, Bela Lugosi, White Zombie. I know you guys are familiar with the band, but familiarize yourself with the movie because the movie's great. It's the original horror movie. The very first, I mean, not the original horror movie, but the original zombie movie. And there's also another great one called Island of Lost Souls, which is by H.G. Wells. And that's just another fantastic horror movie that not a lot of people know about. And The Man Who Laughs is another great one. And M, yes, absolutely, we mentioned them. And also The Black Cat, which is another one of my most favorite horror movies. The version from 1934, right? 34? Yeah. It has Karloff and Lugosi in it, and it's a sick movie. There's
The ending is very sick.
yeah, there's necrophilia,
Skinning people alive.
incest, vivisections, satanic masses. It's fantastic.
Good old family fun.
Yeah, and this is from a movie that was made in 1934. And there's the scene at the end with Karloff and Lugosi duking it out. Priceless to me, and this is great. And Daniel has a very cool painting of Karloff in that movie.
Right over there.
Yeah.
Anything about that movie, there was this implied violence, like stripping off the skin, that it was only shown as a shattered cast on the wall. And because the stuff in your head is way more horrifying, they would make it effect.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of things in these old horror movies were suggested rather than shown graphically, and a lot of times the directors had that in mind, you know, to like not really show the actual thing. I mean, for instance, in the 1932 movie The Mummy, you actually only see Karloff as the mummy in the first like 5 or 10 minutes of the film, and then the rest of the time he's some other character called Ardith Bay. But yeah, you know, the directors would shoot the film so that when you saw certain scenes and you couldn't actually see the graphic scene, you would use your imagination to create whatever horror your imagination.
Well, the best horror is in your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so when you don't see it, but you think it,
Yeah.
you think all this crazy stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Nowadays, they just put it right there on the screen.
Yeah.
It sort of gets overkill. Yeah, but sometimes it's fun. Like Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love all those Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. Those original zombie movies are just classic for me. Cliff Burton's favorite movie of all time was Dawn of the Dead. Bless his soul. Yeah. And yeah, one of my greatest memories is going when I first joined the band. In 1983, I remember at one point we had a break. We weren't playing a show or rehearsing or something, and we all piled into 2 cars and drove to a drive-in somewhere in New Jersey and saw this movie that had just come out called The Evil Dead. And it was so cool because me being a big horror fan and finding out that my bandmates were into going to see this horror movie. It was very, very cool, and that was one of my greatest memories of that first year of joining the band. And Cliff Burton was a big horror fan. Him and I bonded over horror movies, and he was way into H.P. Lovecraft, as I was, and he loved zombies. He loved zombies a lot. Cliff was a zombie guy, and he'd always he would randomly point out some drunk guy. Oh, look at that zombie fucker right there. That was his turn. Look at that fucking zombie fucker. Yeah, hilarious.
kind of already answered the question about not like direct violence, but what do you think about